Now that we know how to create and open documents, let's try to create a project, and along the way we'll learn a number of the techniques that will be helpful to make us more effective with Photoshop. Here's a sample of the project we're going to make. It's 10 strategies for success. It has a graded background on the left side, has a solid on the right, has an image of the graduate on the on top of the solid, and then the 10 bullet points are simply lorem ipsum text. As you see on the right side of the screen over here, I have two layers, and when you have content on your panel or your project, you'll see that it shows up as layers. And if the eyeball is open, the layer is visible. So I'm going to turn off the layer top eyeball, and that took away the type and the image. And the background layer, which is white, if I turn that off, we see that this project is resting on a transparent background. So let's start by making some parts of this project. First, we'll make the shaded blue background on the left. I'll go over to my first document here. And in order to make a shaded blue background, we're going to need the color blue. And I'm going to come over to the color swatches. This will let us learn to select color. So I'm going to select on the foreground color, and a color picker comes up. And from the color picker, you can select the broad range of spectrum colors here. So I'll put that into the blue spectrum. Now on the color picker, if you're at the top left, that is all the way the brightest color but no saturation. This is the darkest color and it's totally saturated. So up the top left it becomes white, and the bottom left it becomes black. And as you move to add saturation, the color changes. And here is the bright with some saturation. And my original color was going to be black, and now it's a shade of blue. I'll just pick a color blue right in here, kind of there. And when I hit OK, the foreground color swatch will change to that color blue. So now I have a shaded color from blue to and white as the background color, blue is the foreground color. I'll move my cursor up to this tool. This is the gradient tool, and I'm going to click on the gradient tool. And the way the gradient tool works is that when you drag the cursor over your document, it makes a line. Holding the cursor down, you can see the line. Now my line right now is going diagonal. So when I let this go, this will go from a blue color, which is the foreground, and make a gradient shade to the white color. I'm going to let go of that. And now we have the blue at the top, and it gradually changes to the white. If I take the cursor and I drag it from the top to the bottom, the gradient will go from the top to the bottom. If I take the cursor and drag it only part way, I get a smaller gradient. And if I hold down the Shift key while I do that, it keeps the line parallel to the edges. So let's go with this, and we'll say that that works for our background. Now I'm going to come over to the layer. Here's the layer. I'm going to double click on the words for the layer, and I'm going to just type in gradient. That gets the gradient selected. And this is a raster based image, and that means it's made with pixels. I'm going to come up, move the cursor up to the top, and I'll take a look at our final again. Next, I think I'll make the red box on the right side. I'm going to use a different technique for that. So I'll move the cursor back to the document I'm working on, and I'm going to need to make a box. So I'm going to click here on the vector graphics area, and I'm going to select the rectangle tool. And here's my rectangle tool. Now the fill of the rectangle right now is going to be blue, and I want that to be red. So I've moved my cursor up. I'm going to click on the blue, and I can select one from the palette here, or after I'm completed I can select one from down here. So I'll say that I'd like the fill of my shape layer to be red. Alright, so this is going to make a vector. So now I can take my cursor and I can place it over top of the image or the canvas. I'm placing it outside of the canvas. I'm holding the cursor down and I'm going to drag a square or a rectangle and cover the outside, and when I let go it makes our red background. Now this is a vector background, and look at the difference in the layer. It's called rectangle 1 and it has a shape with a box of color in it, and that means that this is a vector layer. So I'm going to call this red box, and you can name your layers like this. Now the way the layers work, the layer that's the top layer of the image is above the layer that's the bottom, and you can drag these. So I'm going to take the gradient layer now and drag it above the red layer, and now the red layer is completely hidden because it's below the gradient and it's not visible. Let me turn it back to its normal shape where it was. So the layers pile up on top of each other. So if one layer covers the other, it's not visible. And if I turn off the visibility of the layer, you can see through the to the gradient background. So we have a raster layer and we have a vector layer. Let's look at the image next. We have our image, the photo of the girl. So let's take a look. I have that photo open. Right here it is. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to put that photo into my project window over here. And to do that, I'm going to select the Move tool. Here's the Move tool right here. And I have my layer selected, so I can move this layer. And see, I'm starting to move it along. And what I can do is I can just actually move that layer right over to the box, to my new project. And when I let go, it adds the layer to the new project. So what I did was I drug the layer from the graduate layer, the graduate document. I just drug it over and laid it on top of the other. I have to have the Move tool to do that. Now I still have the Move tool selected, and so I can position this where I'd like, right over here. But you notice that the shape of this is a little bit wide. And so what we'll do is we will use the Marquee tool to remove some of the edges. Okay, so the Marquee tool is right here. I'm going to click the Marquee tool. I've got a square Marquee tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the cursor down, and I'll just crop a little bit of the edge right here. And now I'm going to edit, and I'll just cut that edge. And I'm going to crop a little bit of the edge over here. And I'm going to edit and cut that edge. Now I can use the Control or the Command X to do the same thing. If I like that, I can go back to the Move tool and I can move this into position where I like the image to be. So now I'm going to rename this layer Grad Seated. So now I have three types of layers here. I have one layer that's a raster image, I have one layer that's a vector image, and I have one layer that's a bitmap image with a picture in it that I brought from the other document. In the next movie, I'm going to show you how to add the type to this project.